Are we the fans finally being heard by the UFC when it comes to the Tom Aspinall and Jon Jones saga? Listen, man, maybe it's wishful thinking here. Maybe this isn't the case. Maybe it just so happens that the UFC decided to wake the hell up and start moving forward with the heavyweight division. But yesterday, Tom Aspinall went on ESPN with Daniel Cormier and Chael Sonnen as he went on their show, Good Guy, Bad Guy. And it seems as if not only the UFC is listening to the fan pushback, but it seems as if they are feeling the pressure while in the process of also turning on Jon Jones. Like I said, maybe this could be wishful thinking here, but listen, man, from what we're going to go over in this video, I see a few things going on here from the UFC, from Tom Aspinall. We're going to talk about all of it in this very video because this could potentially be a massive turning point for not only the organization, but in terms of what happens for Tom Aspinall moving forward, right? I've been one of the guys sitting up here saying, listen, man, we got a 32-year-old generational-like talent in the heavyweight division that is having his career halted by the past. That is Jon Jones. It is time to move on. I've been saying for the longest time, my deadline that I gave is it's MSG or bust. If we're going to get this Jones-Aspinall fight, it has to take place at MSG at least by the end of the year, and we need an announcement by International Fight Week. It sounds like things are heading in that direction. If the fight's going to happen or not, it sounds like we are going to be getting Tom Aspinall fight news here very, very soon. So we're going to discuss all of that. And then just today, the UFC announced that they are returning to Paris for a fight night. And you might say, Jake, who the hell cares? They're going back to Paris for a fight night. Woohoo, they got a great crowd. And all of those things are true. But isn't that interesting? Because the UFC's heading back to Paris for a fight night. Who usually headlines those, right? Nasruddin Imavov could potentially be a headliner. He's going to be the backup at UFC 319, which is in August, so probably not him. Okay, down he goes. Is it going to be, Benoit Saint-Denis? Probably not. He doesn't have enough steam behind him to headline. So who is that potential headliner? That is Ciryl Gane. Now, what's interesting is Ciryl Gane is basically the guy that we all seem would be facing Tom Aspinall if Tom does not fight Jon Jones. This is a fight night here, right? It's not out of the realm of possibility that they could have a title fight headline a fight night. We've seen it before, but for the heavyweight division, that just seems like it's completely out the window. But it's very interesting how there's a fight night here going down in Paris because given the options that I just laid out for you, is it going to be Ciryl Gane fighting for the title? Are we actually going to get Jones versus Aspinall? There are a lot of interesting things. I want to discuss it. And then also the TV deal. We do have an update there, and things are just kind of weird there. I don't really like necessarily the direction that the UFC is looking to go. So we'll discuss all of it in this video. But like I was just saying, man, it's interesting, right? Because, yeah, who cares so much about this fight night? It's the timing and what I just was saying, like Nasruddin Imavov, he's going to be the backup for the DDP versus Hamzat fight, right? So that's in August. I don't see him headlining, this card here. Benoit Saint-Denis, who's another name that would, be out there to headline the card. I don't see him getting a fight night headliner, right? We know when they go to Paris, we are getting someone from France that is probably going to headline the card. And one of the guys that comes to mind is Ciryl Gane. He has always been someone that the UFC looks to go to headline these fight nights unless he is going to be fighting in a title fight. So to me, this means that I think we are going to be getting some news very soon on what is next for Tom Aspinall, because if it's Ciryl Gane, it's going to be, do you see what I'm saying here? Like, this is why this is interesting, because if Gane's going to be headlining this card, we either have someone else fighting Tom Aspinall or we are getting Aspinall versus Jones, right? So we got some things to discuss here. So I just thought that the timing of this was rather interesting. But before we get into what Tom was kind of talking about on Good Guy, Bad Guy, I wanted to point this out because the UFC channel took Tom's portion of joining the show and posted it on their YouTube channel. Now, you might say, whoa, that's just a small thing. Who cares? That's a big deal because for the UFC to even try to promote the future of the heavyweight division, which is Tom Aspinall, it's just seemed like it's been pulling teeth, which it shouldn't be like that, right? I mean, it's just felt like we've had to hold the UFC at gunpoint or something just to get them to say something nice about Tom Aspinall. I mean, every angle Dana White has to say something about Tom, it's all about Jon Jones. Jon Jones walks into a room, he's coming out, he's the greatest, and all these different things. They're finally starting to push and promote Tom Aspinall. Yesterday was a big day in the MMA world for Tom Aspinall because getting promotion on the side of Tom has not been easy to come by. So we need to celebrate these victories. Now, granted, we shouldn't necessarily have to celebrate this because we shouldn't be having to beg the UFC to promote the future of the heavyweight division. Like, it's absolutely crazy. It's absolutely madness. But the good news is it seems like they are turning a page here. Not only turning a page, but Tom Aspinall had mentioned that I am the undisputed heavyweight champion, and the UFC rolled with that when dropping Tom Aspinall's interview segment. The UFC's turning on Jon Jones, man. They're turning on Jon Jones, and it's one of two things. They are either the ship has sailed, they are moving on, and we are moving forward with the division like Tom alludes to, or they are trying to bait Jon into taking some sort of offer. Those are the only two possibilities here. Now, I've been saying for a while, I'm 60% that the fight does not happen, 40% that it does. I honestly would be shocked if we get Aspinall versus Jones. But the point I'm trying to make here, this is huge that the UFC is heading in the direction of now starting to push the new face of the heavyweight division, the present, not the past, the present, which is Tom Aspinall. So this is big, man. This is big because, like I said, we haven't gotten enough Tom Aspinall promotion, and that's something that we've all basically been criticizing is, where's the mention of Tom Aspinall? This guy's been the longest reigning interim heavyweight champ of all time. It's been absolutely ridiculous the way the UFC has handled it, and they are starting to put their eggs in the Tom Aspinall basket. I guess better late than never. But let's move on here to when after, this whole ordeal here, right? He goes on good guy, bad guy. We got Tom's name in the headlines here. And he says, want to be the first to wish Jon all the best in his retirement. Let's get this division going at UFC. Now, this might be a great play here by Tom Aspinall because, like I said, this is one of two things. Obviously, it's either Tom and the UFC are trying to work together to get Jon to sign on the dotted line and make the fight happen, or he is just, trying to get under Jon's skin. And I don't think at the end of the day that that's necessarily going to do anything for Jon at this point. I think Jon already knows what he wants to do. I think he already has it made up in his mind that I either see a possibility that I can beat Tom or this is too damn risky. I'm 38 years of age. I'm getting tagged by old man Stipe Miocic on the feed. And if I'm getting hit by him, what happens when I'm in there with a 32-year-old prime Aspinall that moves like a lightweight and has devastating knockout power? Now, I will say this. There's also that side where I think Jon knows the risk, but he's rolling the tape going, man, as Aspinall's talented and he's explosive, but he's incredibly predictable. He basically just throws a big leg kick and a 1-2. Let's be real, man. Like, as much as I like Tom Aspinall, he's very simple to deal with. Very, very simple to deal with. I think Francis Ngannou is a bigger puzzle than Tom Aspinall at this point, but I do still think that obviously it's the factor of Jon could get flatlined. That wakes him up at night. It keeps him up at night, and I think that is what Jon has been wrestling with the entire time. Yeah, of course he wants to make money and get paid the FU money that he's asking for and all these different things, but it's exactly what Daniel Cormier was saying is what I feel like a lot of us have been alluding to. Jon has that horror nightmare of getting starched and flatlined in front of the world. Everything that he's done throughout his career would not necessarily get thrown out, right? Because he already has the checkered past we all know about. But it would be the fact that everything that he's done, he's essentially undefeated, goes out there and gets starched by the guy who would be able to make a name off of him. That's what this is about for Jon Jones. That's what this is about for Jon Jones. Yeah, he wants to, bargain and make all the money in the world, but I'm not sure that that's exactly the total picture here. It is what Jon is wrestling with, the ego, the fact that he doesn't want to get flatlined. He doesn't want to give Tom the opportunity to even go in there and possibly KO him. That's what this is about, man. That's what this is about. And I still think it's a winnable fight for Jon. I lean towards Aspinall. I've been saying that for a long time. But if someone could solve Tom Aspinall, it would be Jon if he can extend him into those mid to later rounds. 100%. Jon has a chance in this fight. It's just the fact that he's older. And Tom Aspinall looks like something we've never seen at heavyweight. That's the facts, man. And he has really good grappling, really good jiu-jitsu. This is a good play here by Tom Aspinall, right? He's trying to rile up Jon Jones, get things going here, because even if there possibly is a close agreement here on the side of Jon, this can help speed it up. Now, will it? No, because Jon's going to be the one that, dictates this, because that's basically what's been going on the whole time. But I like this, because if the Jones fight doesn't happen, we have Tom Aspinall coming out here and wishing him all the best in his retirement. Let's get the division moving. And I like everything that we have heard from Tom Aspinall, because we're going to take a look at just a few things that he had to say on the show, because Tom Aspinall says Jon is retired. Nah, man, Jon's retired. You guys don't follow Jon on social media? I'm the undisputed heavyweight champion of the world. I'm ready to get this division moving again. And this is what we all like about Tom, guys. Listen, if you're not a Tom Aspinall fan, the thing that you must respect about this guy is he wants to be active. He wants the heavyweight division to be moving forward. And one of the big issues that we've had, obviously, with the heavyweight division, it has been unbelievably stale, right? It's been like we have two separate heavyweight divisions, right? Because it's been Jon Jones, he went out there and beat Gane, which that was still very impressive. We got to give him his due there, but we know that that was rather a strategic matchup. I know Gane, I think, was the number one ranked guy at the time, but he had already fought for the belt before, right? Against Derek Lewis and all these different things. He goes in there against Jon. It was a very favorable matchup for Jon. Still, we didn't know what was going to happen when Jon moved up to heavyweight. And then he's in the old man league defending it against Stipe Miocic, a title fight that nobody cared about and should have never have happened. The UFC wasted that fight when it should have been Aspinall. And then we have Tom actually going out there fighting the real contenders within the division, defending his interim title. He's the same amount of title defenses as Jon Jones. We get all of those things, but the point, this guy wants to be active. He wants the division moving. He's 32 years of age. He wants to be an active champion. And the good thing about Tom Aspinall, the way he fights, this guy doesn't take much damage. He's in and out of there in less than 5 minutes usually, right? So we could get Tom Aspinall headlining multiple cards a year. There's a chance that Aspinall could fight 3 times a year, at least. At the rate that he's moving, he could fight 3 times a year. Obviously, injuries, all those kinds of things, but the division looks bright under Tom Aspinall. That's what a lot of us have been trying to open up the eyes of a lot of the old heads out there. These, 50-year-olds or whoever they are sitting around going, Jon Jones is the GOAT, man. He's a true heavyweight champ. And yeah, he's technically the heavyweight champion. But come on, man. Tom Aspinall is the future of the division. He's the future of the division. He wants to be active. Isn't that the guy that you want ruling over the weight class? Someone that's going to fight the up-and-coming contenders, not look to fight old man Stipe Miocic, who was coming off of a brutal KO loss to Ngannou, hadn't fought since the Venom fight kits have been around. It had been multiple years, got folded like a lawn chair, comes back into a title shot against Jon Jones to where Stipe looked old and washed. It's a waste of a title fight. It was a waste of a title fight. That is what we're looking at with this division right now. And Tom Aspinall wants to be active. Guys, why are we still talking about Jon? He's retired. He's done. I said a long time ago, I'm going to retire Jon without even fighting him. That's exactly what happened. It's what happened, man. It's exactly what happened. Look at what Jon Jones, look what's happened. Tom Aspinall, he called this. He called this from the very beginning, and a lot of us have sat out here and said, listen, man, this fight's probably not happening. You recognize Jon Jones throughout his career. I've always criticized Jon for this, okay? The bottom line is, yes, Jon Jones has done unbelievable things in the sport. He's had his issues for sure, and I think Jon Jones he's a checkered past guy, right? He's done horrible things, and he's a very, his record and stuff a lot of the times takes a hit because of the stuff that Jon Jones has done, his shenanigans. But listen, the bottom line is this. Jon Jones, whenever it comes to these dangerous challenges, whether it's Francis Ngannou, it was Jan Blachowicz at light heavyweight after he squeaked by against Dominic Reyes. We all know Dominic Reyes won that fight. Or it's these guys with crazy one-shot knockout power or crazy power, to say the least. All of a sudden, Jon needs all of these different, things to be met in order for him to just fight the next guy. Hasn't that how it's always been basically with Jon Jones? I know that he's fought some great guys in their primes like Alexander Gustafsson, Daniel Cormier, but when it came down to fighting Jan Blachowicz when Jan was in his prime and the legendary Polish power, like I'm not saying necessarily that he ducked Jan because then he moved to heavyweight, but it's just odd how every time there's this dangerous, powerful challenge in front of Jon, he needs more money, he needs this, he needs that, just like the Francis Ngannou situation. We all knew he didn't want to fight Francis. And then we have here, you guys are going to really see soon. This is exciting times for the heavyweight division. We got some movement. I'll tell you something. I've got a date and a location. This is fantastic news. Because we finally have, which seems like, right? Again, this is Tom Aspinall here, and he said before, doing all these little, teasers announcements, which we're going to get to in a minute because, I think Tom's on thin ice with a lot of fans right now. But, this is good because hopefully this is true. And it doesn't strike me as something that Tom Aspinall would make up, right? Chael was trying to, grill him and try to see if he could get some answers out of him. But we need to get the division moving. That has been the big critique moving forward. Either get the Jones-Aspinall fight done, and if we can't, get it moving, right? And of course, there's a chance that Jon, we heard him on Vic Blends. I talked about that in another video to where he's kind of like wrestling with his mind of if he wants to continue to fight. I wouldn't be shocked if Aspinall goes out there, loses to someone like an Almeida or someone who's not particularly dangerous, right? Dangerous with the grappling, but doesn't have the true knockout threat. It wouldn't shock me if Jon Jones just comes back and fights Almeida if he was able to beat Aspinall. It wouldn't surprise me. Right now, I'm not saying that that's going to happen, but it wouldn't shock me. It wouldn't shock me one bit, man. And, he's out here saying, because a lot of people have been talking about, look, Tom Aspinall is pulling a Michael Chandler, sitting around waiting for Conor McGregor. And Tom says, I've seen a lot of people comparing me to Michael Chandler. He waited for McGregor. I'm not trying to fight one guy. I'm trying to fight all the guys. And then he even says, I'm trying to be the guy at heavyweight who takes out everybody. It doesn't matter who it is. Gane, Volkov rematch, Almeida, Derek Lewis, Brock Lesnar, whoever it is, I don't care. Let's not talk about Jon Jones anymore. I'm the active guy. I'm going to fight somebody, and that's going to be announced pretty soon. Listen, man, this is what I was saying about Tom. This guy wants to be active, wants to get the division moving. And the thing about Aspinall is, out of a lot of the names, right, the heavyweight division is super stale, right? And that's one of the reasons that this has been drugged so far along is, yes, Jon Jones is a big name and he taps into the older audience and he's kind of the last of a dying breed in the UFC, so to speak, right? We had the big names like Khabib, Nate Diaz, Conor McGregor, Jon Jones is one of them, the Ronda Rouseys, Brock Lesnar's, those names that get people that aren't necessarily fight fans to tune in and watch what they're doing. That's what Jon, the UFC at least, feels Jon provides, and he's kind of that last breed in that element. And that's why I believe that they've been so, whatever. Maybe Jon's got some blackmail on him. I don't know. But I feel like that is a large reason of why the UFC has allowed Jon to do what he's done. It's why they've allowed him to get away with so much. They've prolonged this so long because there's nothing in the heavyweight division. There's not much, at least, right? At least we have with Aspinall, we do have the Gane matchup. We do have a Volkov rematch. But are any of those fights as big as, the Jones fight? They're not, man. They're not. And as much as we want to kind of hate on it because we're sick of Jon at this point, we can't deny that that is definitely the biggest fight in the division, without question. Now, I think that Aspinall versus Gane, that's still a big fight. I think it's very intriguing. But it's not Jones versus Aspinall. And that is kind of the holdup here. And that's what Jon knows. He's like, I got the leverage here. What are you going to do? You're going to book Aspinall versus Gane? People will kind of care, but not really. That hits like the hardcore fans, but to the casual, not really. Almeida, that doesn't get people excited. I mean, for the hardcores, it does, right? Styles and all those kinds of things. But that is what's been going on here, right? That is exactly what's been going on here. And this is not the Conor McGregor situation because the difference with Tom Aspinall is exactly what I said before. Someone commented this and was coming after me for saying, oh, well, you're criticizing get ragging on Michael Chandler, but you're not ragging on Aspinall, you're praising him. The bottom line is, that's what I've been saying. These are two completely different things, man. Two completely different things. Conor McGregor is not an active fighter. He's not a champion. He's not an active fighter. When the hell was the last time Conor McGregor's won a fight? Right? Tom Aspinall is active. Jon Jones has been more active than Conor McGregor. And by the way, he's the champion. He's the current heavyweight champion. He went out there, beat Gane, defended a title against Stipe Miocic. He's not some guy, he's still inactive in the process of doing that. He's not a guy that hasn't fought in multiple years who's not even a champion, right? I know Conor's a big name, and what Chandler's doing, like I've said, is super pathetic. This is different with Aspinall. He wants the Jones challenge, but he doesn't really care. He wants to fight whoever has the title. That's what this has been about the whole time. Of course, he would love to be the guy that can go out there and knock out Jon Jones. Like, obviously, if you were a fighter, you would want that opportunity if you were in his position for sure. And if not, you're lying to yourself, right? This guy just wants to win the actual undisputed title. Jon's been in the way of that. He's been in the way of that. He's been stalling out Tom Aspinall's prime, right? And it's gone on for too long. But the good news is Tom's only 32. He's only 32. His fights have been quick. Doesn't have a lot of wear and tear on his body. But the time is now. The time is now. The UFC's got all these different things going on. The time is now, ladies and gentlemen. And I feel like the UFC feels that. Whether they're hearing that from the fans or they're just waking up now and they're realizing, man, we really can't get through to Jones here. Or they're trying one last ditch effort to try to rile up Jon and get him to sign and take a fight. In case the UFC doesn't know this, that ain't going to work for Jon Jones, man. You can talk all the shit you want to Jon. You can say all these different things. Jon already knows what he wants to do here. I believe that. I believe that Jon knows what he wants to do. And what he knows he wants to do is not take the fight. He doesn't want to take this fight because I've said this before, guys. It is still a winnable fight for Jon. It's still a winnable fight for Jon. And I know he's older and he was getting tagged by Stipe, but it's the fact that Tom Aspinall is a simple guy for Jon to solve. Just don't get hit by the right hand. Don't get hit by the right hand. And that's kind of what Jon is wrestling with. Do I want to run the risk of possibly getting flatlined in the final fight of my career? Because if he got knocked out by Tom, that'd be it for Jon. That's what Jon's wrestling with. And listen, man, Tom Aspinall, I feel like he's on a little bit of thin ice right now because he's been doing these, I'm making a big announcement to where it ended up being that he signed with, Champion, the brand, and, which I love that for Tom Aspinall, getting that kind of exposure. But then he's out here, releasing a skit trolling fans about a new massive announcement, which was today. And look, it was him for, his Fight Lab thing that he does with TNT Sports. And I thought that it was kind of, a little cringe, but funny at the same time. And people are on the edge of their seats now. They're on edge as well with Tom Aspinall because I feel like a lot of fans, they're like, man, we're backing you, Tom. We got this petition going around to strip Jon Jones, and you're taking advantage of the situation by being like, I got these announcements. But at the end of the day, fans, we should all know by now that the fighters aren't going to make their announcement. They're not going to do it, right? They may drop little teasers out there, but then they're not going to go live on Instagram and pretend they're Dana White and put that bald head up to the screen and be like, breaking news, Tom Aspinall versus Jon Jones, MSG. That ain't going to happen. It's going to be Dana White going live on Instagram, which, by the way, can't we do something better for big fight announcements now instead of just an IG live where there's not much hype and then a little Instagram post after with the graphic of the fight poster? Come on, man. UFC's just got to be better. But I feel like Tom Aspinall, he's got to be careful with this, right? In all seriousness, I feel like he's got to be careful here because for me, it's starting to get annoying. It is. And I'm one of those people that's been defending Aspinall. I want to see him, get moving here. I want to see the division move on. But when you start doing these little teasers, and I get the trolling and this and that, but when you start throwing around massive announcements, when we're on the edge of our seat to see Tom fight next, we want the Jones-Aspinall fight, all this different stuff, and you start doing this multiple times, you start to piss people off. But at the end of the day, it keeps Tom's name in the headline. So, like it or not, I guess that this is what we got to roll with Tom. But last but not least, man, let's talk about the TV deal updates, okay? So this is the latest of what we heard so far. Renewal talks with ESPN appear to be the furthest along. Amazon Prime and Netflix are also in the room. Amazon, I'm told, is most interested in the UFC's pay-per-view business. The wild card in negotiation is Warner Bros. Discovery. Very interesting. Okay, very interesting. Now, I want to weigh in and give my thoughts here because I'm actually kind of surprised about the ESPN situation. Now, I'm going to give my thoughts here because ESPN Plus, to me, it's been a nightmare. It's been a nightmare over the past, at least over the past year. Now, I'm not talking the beginning of 2025, like a year, right? So June of last year at this time, it has just gotten so much worse on behalf of ESPN Plus, at least in my opinion, right? The app's crashing all the time. It has loading issues. People are trying to get the pay-per-views and it's not working. There have been so many problems with ESPN Plus, right? And in terms of what it seemed like the relationship and the direction it was heading between the UFC and ESPN/ESPN Plus, it seemed like it wasn't very good, right? So to hear that ESPN seems like it's still really up there to, possibly get something done again here with the UFC. I'm not shocked, right? I'm not shocked, guys. Like, people are going to act like they're surprised, but the reason I'm not shocked here, we heard the UFC was asking for a large price, right? I think it was, what was it, a billion or whatever it was, some large number in order to basically take over the rights to televise the UFC. And whenever you do that and people are sitting back looking at the value in terms of the popularity of the UFC, there's no question that the brand is absolutely massive, but in terms of that star power, that's been the big critique of the UFC that's kind of been missing. And could that be that the UFC's been holding out the Jones fight and all this and that because of the TV deals? That's what a lot of people, including me, were thinking in the beginning, until I realized that I'm just not so sure that that's actually the case at this point. However, I'm not surprised about ESPN, man, because when the UFC threw out that price tag and these, these platforms are looking at, the star power and these types of things, the UFC has been with ESPN for a while. They already have the business relationship. They already have the setup here. And I just think that some of these other brands are looking at this going, really? I mean, do we want to dabble in this? The pay-per-view model, we know that the UFC is probably not going to want to get away from that, right? They're probably not. How does Netflix feel about a pay-per-view option? Right? So there's all these different things to kind of factor in here. And the UFC, these other places, how interested actually are they? How interested is Netflix really, right? Given the fact that this star power whole critique thing that's been going on, and maybe they don't see exactly what the UFC once was in terms of having those massive draws, right? Maybe those are factors, but I'm not surprised, man. I'm not surprised to hear that the ESPN is still, at the top of the conversation here. And again, we kind of knew that this was coming. It's kind of the safe option where if all fails, well, we'll just kind of renew with ESPN. That's what it's always felt like to me. And that sucks because ESPN Plus has been absolutely atrocious. It's been awful. Right? And then recently, they took down like all the old fights. You used to be able to go back and watch the previous pay-per-view events, at least the ones that have happened since they've been with ESPN Plus. And last time I checked, they had most of those removed. So it seemed like maybe, they were going to head in a different direction. But then to hear this, who knows what's going on? But to hear that they're going to go back to ESPN or have them involved in some sort of way, I'm not surprised. At the end of the day, it's a big sporting network. They've been working together for a while. And if some of these others aren't willing to kind of work with the UFC in terms of the pay-per-view option, in terms of doing exactly what the UFC wants, maybe they don't want to be a part of it. Right? So those are some things to kind of take into consideration here. But I just want to kind of give my thoughts there because I find it unfortunate. Because I feel like the UFC may try to do like what the NFL does and be across like, CBS, Fox. Like, I'm not saying those stations specifically, but spread it out to multiple different platforms. That's kind of what I was thinking, but I don't know, man. I really don't know. And to hear that they're going to go back to ESPN, possibly go back to ESPN, given all of how horrible ESPN Plus has been, sucks. I was excited to see something new. Maybe they still do something with ESPN Plus and then, I don't know, do the pay-per-views there and then have the fight nights somewhere else. I don't know. Interesting news, though, something to keep an eye on as we move forward. But ESPN Plus has been an absolute shit show, and I feel like if they can't drastically change something, I don't know, man. I feel like that it would kind of suck for the UFC to stick around with them at this point. That's my thoughts on it. But if you guys enjoyed this video, please give it a like. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell so you do not miss an upload. I would appreciate it. See you next time.